is Jim Roberg. I am with the New Hampshire Department of Military Affairs and Veterans Service Division of Community-Based Military Programs. And we want to again thank Jamie Cummings, who's the supervisor for the New Hampshire Division of Veterans Services, for joining us today to talk about all things VSO related. There's a lot of information, and the reason that we are recording this is we are going to be editing it and putting it on YouTube, so that if you miss something or you didn't take a note on something, but then you want to go back, it will be up there, and we try to have it up there within a week. A lot of this information is universal nationwide, so that's why we opened it up to this nationwide series that we host. And I am biased. I just need everyone to know that I am biased because Jamie helped me with my claim and was amazing. But she is the supervisor there also and is a wealth of knowledge. So we're just gonna do this kind of interview style, and I really hope that you enjoy it and learn something. Please keep yourself muted, and we will open it up to questions at the end. Okay. Thank you so much. All right. So Jamie, thank you again. Before we get started, is there anything you would like to add?
No, I think we'll get to it because I know people have questions.
Perfect. All right. So my first question for you, Jamie, is can you explain exactly what a VSO is and what services a VSO can help with?
Absolutely. So a VSO is a veteran service officer. Sometimes it's called something different depending on what organization you're working with. It could be a national veteran service officer, it could be a county veteran service officer. So you may see some different acronyms depending on where you live in the country. But a VSO is a veteran service officer. We help assist you through the claims process. We talk about federal benefits. Some states have different benefits. I know like our neighbors in Massachusetts have a lot of state benefits. So they do a lot of state benefit paperwork. New Hampshire is a little bit different where the specific agency will manage that benefit. So we would refer you to the appropriate agency, but a lot of what we do is federal. We help with paperwork. We help you with forms. We tell you what kind of evidence is good, what kind of evidence is not good. And we help build a really good packet before we submit it. We can also help with appeals and just general confusion, because I love the programs the VA offers, but they're about as clear as mud. And that's why we have so many people registering and going to watch this on YouTube afterwards, because it's really confusing. I wish it wasn't. I would be an advocate doing something different at a different agency, but that's just simply not the case. I think another important point is to talk about what we do not do. We are not the VA. I work for the state. I love the VA. It's confusing because I have like, even my login name has like, it's confusing because I'm on a federal computer with my maiden name still showing up. My last name is Cummings, not Tessier. We have people that get confused thinking we're case managers and social workers or therapists. We're not that. We are really a vehicle to help you get to your benefits. So part of having a VSO is having a conversation and us figuring out what you need to do and us helping you get there. And sometimes it's an honest conversation if we can't help you do what you want, but that conversation still needs to be had, because if you never ask these questions, the answer is always going to be no. So we want people to ask about their benefits, even if at that point in time, we can't do anything for you. At least we can educate you so you know what your benefits are.
So to me, it would seem like you're the vehicle for the claim, but also the veteran or military member needs to be an active and willing participant.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, you know, Jim, you outed me as your VSO. So at the end of the day, like when we first met, I told you what you needed to do. You were very compliant and did everything I asked. Beautiful, easy. But at the end of the day, it's your claim. If you were like, Jamie, I don't want to do this, I would back off and say, okay, no problem. It's your claim, right? I'm very opinionated. I will tell you what you need to do. You may not like it, but at the end of the day, it's your claim. You can say, you know what? I don't want to file this claim right now. And that's okay with me because it's your claim, it's your military service, right? Like it's yours. So I'm not going to push you. I will tell you if I think you're going to hurt yourself though. But at the end of the day, it's your claim.
Perfect.
Yep.
And so what do you think the most important things to look for in a VSO are?
I think you need to have open communication with your VSO. They need to educate you. You need to listen at the same time. Sometimes when we meet with our clients, you've waited a long time, or people come to us when they're not necessarily in a good point in their life. Right. So
That was
if
me,
you,
for sure.
so, but at the same time, you could have a lot of health problems going on. You could be very stressed out, nervous about the process. So sometimes you take in about 25% of what we're telling you. So bringing a notebook, pen and paper, listening, bringing a family member with you to kind of absorb some of that information coming in is really important. I think also probably number one before that is making sure you're working with an accredited VSO. That means I am certified and approved by the VA to do this. And Jim, I don't know if you saw what I sent you. I sent you some links.
Yeah.
You can search my name on the VA's Office of General Counsel website and see my accreditation number. I am bound by that number. I could go to jail if I commit fraud. Like it's serious. There are people out there that commit fraud. It's insane. I could do a whole hour talk on on this topic. I won't. But you want to work with someone who knows what they're doing. They can really screw you up if they don't. And there's a lot of people out there that mean well that want to help a veteran, but they must be accredited. Or you need to work with a lawyer, right? Like a lawyer could do this stuff for you. But VSOs are free. I don't want you to get charged for this. There's a lot of companies out there. Jamie's opinion, I'm going to call them ambulance chasers. They're looking to zap your retro. They're going to take a percentage of that. They're going to, they can't outrightly charge you for filing a claim. I think they roll it into like life coaching or in different ways. Like there's gray area in the law where they can charge you. I get paid by the state of New Hampshire. Your taxpayer dollars pay for me. Let me work for you and help you, right? Like I do this for free. I want you to retain all your benefits. I don't want to take any of them away from you. So morally, I think it's icky, but there are companies out there that do it, and you'll see them on Facebook. You'll see the ads, especially since PACT Act came out. Let us help you. Oh, by the way, sign this form and we get 15 or 20% of your retro. I don't like that.
Right.
Just don't like it. I think that, so, okay, we talked about making sure your VSO is accredited. I think the other thing that's important is to make sure you're communicating with your VSO. If you don't understand something, you need to talk to them about it. Don't make any assumptions, right? Like if you're not asking the question, you need to ask. I don't understand what you just said. Can you explain that more clearly for me? We want to educate you. That's why we do this. So that's really, really important. And I think trusting your VSO and feeling comfortable with them is also really important. Like if you need a female VSO or you need to work with the male VSO for whatever reason, you need to communicate that ahead of time, because you're never going to feel comfortable to tell your VSO what's going on if you don't feel comfortable with them. So I think that's really important as well.
So you brought something up about hiring an attorney, and essentially a VSO is free and they can do a lot of that claims stuff for you. When is it pertinent, or when should you start looking for a VA claims attorney in this process?
In my personal opinion, you
Yeah.
don't need one. Now,
Ever?
no, so there's a point where VSO can't go with you anymore. If you get through and I'm going it down in the weeds. So if this doesn't resonate with you, let it roll off you, right? Just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
If you get past the Board of Veterans Appeals and you disagree with that decision, you then move on to an adversarial court. You must obtain a lawyer at that point, and your VSO would tell you that.
Okay.
But I can do all that stuff up to the board. I had 4 board hearings last week. It's like a mediation. I go in and present the case with the veteran. I do that for free. Again, why do you need to pay someone?
Right.
Jamie's personal opinion. I want you to keep your money. So
Yeah, and there's been a lot of things going on, especially with the PACT Act, of
yes,
people looking for a VSO and not realizing it, and then signing one of those documents, and then now that agency is taking 10% of your disability check every month because you sign that document, and it's kind of icky, as you say.
Yes, it's the ick factor. Morally, it's gray and I don't like it.
Right.
I like rules, I like laws, I like black and white. Don't go in the gray area.
Yeah.
Jim put the link for how to search if the VSO you're working with is accredited, or if you see a company, it's going to say if they're a claims agent, if they're a veteran service officer, if they're a lawyer, or if you had someone commit some fraud or you think they're shady, you can file a notice with the Office of General Counsel and report them if you see some fraudulent behavior. So that link is in the comments. And again, like if anyone needs stuff, like they can let us know and we can email that out to you guys later. So, but definitely you want to check for that accreditation number. And I'm on there. If you want to check me, my name's on there.
Well, I think we kind of skipped past. So let me ask this: what are the steps to the claims process? Like, how do you get started?
I think the first thing is to think about if you want to file a claim. I think if you're here listening to this, you're probably have an inkling, maybe I need to file a claim, maybe I didn't do it right, I don't know. The first thing is to get a VSO. And I would say book an appointment. You need to bring up your concerns and let them know what's going on. At that point, I kind of feel like I'm a detective sometimes because I'm like pulling information out of my clients, like, oh, like I see you going like this a lot. How's your hearing? Do you need to file a hearing loss claim? So sometimes we're like pulling information out of our clients.
Yeah.
Um, we identify what conditions you maybe need to apply for. The key point, and per the federal code, you have to show that you had an event, injury, or illness that was caused by the military. And that you currently hold that diagnosis. So you have to have a current diagnosed condition. So we talk about that. If you're like, oh, I've just been icing my knee at home for the past 20 years and just kind of sucking it up. My spidey senses tingle. I'll go, well, hold on. You need to go talk to your doctor about that. That's not good. Like, go talk to your doc about it. But I think veterans are really good about sucking it up and not complaining. It's military culture. So sometimes you don't have a lot of good evidence, maybe. So we'll talk about different types of evidence. We'll start gathering all that stuff together. We help you with the forms. You can do a medical release for the VA to go get your records, or you can give me your records. I like to do as complete a package as possible. It's going to let the VA do a better job on your claim. Once we get all that stuff together, buddy statements, service records, private medical records, supporting statements, photos, you could do your cruise book, personnel records that have a description of your citation, like, I don't know, whatever, anything's fair game for evidence. We pull all that together, put it on the proper forms, and then typically your VSO will submit that to the VA directly. Most of it's a digital upload now, so we get date stamps, digital date stamps, so when your claim gets submitted. So again, the sky's the limit for evidence. So once your claim goes in, the VA goes into a development period. And it can seem like there's just this like chunk of time where you don't hear anything from the VA. It's because they're sifting through all the evidence you just gave them, and it can take a bit. So they're tabbing out your medical records, they're looking at your personnel, your service records, like a lot of stuff. When they're ready, they will order exams for you. It's typically through a VA contractor, which again, we could have a whole nother discussion about VA comp and pen exams. They send you for that comp and pen exam. When those are done, it could be flagged ready for a decision if there's no outstanding development items.
Okay.
Then a decision is made. Then you talk to again, dialogue. Can have dialogue with your VSO through the whole thing. But when the decision comes out, you're going to get this big packet and go, I don't know what this means. Jim, I actually think you and I had this conversation. What does this mean? I think it's good. I'm not sure. So we go through and talk about what the packet means. I think that I just simplified that and made it seem really easy. Can be a complicated process. So I just made it sound a lot easier than it is. I think the biggest thing is getting your packet in with your VA, to the VA with your VSO and getting it submitted. You can do a standard claim. You could do a fully developed claim. I just say get it in. Just get it in, work with your VA, call and book an appointment, even if you don't know. I just saw a question pop up in the chat. And we're gonna get to this about when you want to file a BDD claim. I'll get there. If you're already out of the military, get your claim in, meet with the VSO, just do it. I'm telling
So,
you, I'm
so,
opinionated.
so
Do
don't
it.
wait 10 years like I did and have like a complete,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
So I did a claim for a World War II veteran during COVID. He couldn't come out of his assisted living facility. I met with his daughter. He just turned 100. He's a pretty cool guy, combat veteran, like really, really cool guy. He just wanted hearing aids. So he, he just wanted to put in a hearing loss claim. Like, I mean, a legit combat veteran in Europe during World War II. He didn't want to do anything else. I'm like, okay, I'll put in a hearing loss claim for you. It don't wait that long, but if you have, it's okay. Let us help you. Um, and I would say just talk to the VSO about it, right? Just talk to the VSO. Maybe you have to do like 2 different claims because you don't have enough evidence to do part of it. Your VSO is going to help you figure all that stuff out.
okay. And so what kind of challenges does it pose for you if
Mhm.
somebody like me waits 10 years, gets hospitalized at a VA, and then says, oh, maybe I should have done this a long time ago, and then comes
So
to,
if you've got a little bit of the procrastination bug and then
yeah,
wait until
the
you're in
proud bug.
crisis,
I call it the
yeah, the
proud
proud,
bug. Yeah,
right, the proud bug, that is okay. I would say if you've waited and now you're in crisis, you're going to be upset, potentially upset with the process because you still have to go through the process and file the claim. So try and show the VA a little grace, try and show your VSO a little grace, work with them. We get that people come to us when they're not in their finest hour, right? They're coming, who wants to tangle with the federal government? I don't know. Most people don't want to.
right.
Um, so I would just say, you need to let the VSO know if you're in crisis, I'm in financial hardship, I have a terminal diagnosis, like you need to communicate that stuff. Things to avoid, don't, okay, so I would say if you're in a bunch of Facebook groups that people complain about being a veteran or the VA, get out of those because it's going to give you a really bad taste in your mouth. You got to stop doing that. My friend told me they got this. My neighbor said this. Get out of that mindset. That's not healthy. Every veteran is different. I've been doing this for 16 years. I can't tell you, I've never done the same claim for anybody. Maybe if it's just a hearing loss claim, but usually people have different combinations of things. And Jim, you were in the Army. You
Yes.
probably know hundreds of our other Army veterans that all have different conditions. Their service was different. Even if you serve side by side with someone for your entire military career, their service could be very different than yours.
Right.
So everybody's different. So I would say do not comparing yourself to someone else. Oh, so and so said they got 100% easy, no problem. Don't listen to that stuff. It is very toxic. Um, I would say also don't check e-benefits for a status update every 2 seconds because that is going to give you like the panic attack of a lifetime. Status could change because VA is working on something and you think you missed a deadline, and then all of a sudden you're in high panic mode and freaking out, blowing up your VSO's phone, panicking. If you see something, I would take a screenshot, email it so they can check status for you. We get access to more stuff than you guys get to see and have a better picture of what's going on because of our accreditation and certifications. So I would say don't fall prey to the comparison bug and let your VSO guide you. Be careful what other people are saying because they might not have the full picture. So I think those are some of the biggest things to avoid.
Okay. And then, so as someone who does this all the time, then what is the most important information you can give to a separating service member?
Okay, so they're separating. Evidence is key. Get that stuff documented. You're in a sweet spot where you still have access to get things documented. So I called it the procrastination bug. You call it the proud bug. Put that aside and get stuff documented, right? I know you might have gone years without getting things documented because you wanted to retain your flight status or make sure you were still worldwide deployable. I get it. Maybe something happened to you that you didn't feel that you had a command that you could trust, that you could disclose what was going on or whatever. Now's the time to get that stuff documented. Get buddy statements from people you served with and you still have access. Get a copy of your medical records. You have access to all that stuff right now. And I would say you need to clearly communicate your symptoms and your concerns. and get it documented, make sure it's on your separation physical. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that stuff in a little bit. But my rule of thumb is if you put something on the form, you need to have a piece of paper to back that up. So if you keep that in mind as you're separating, you'll have the evidence you need
Okay.
to have a successful VA claim.
And so what are some of the biggest challenges facing veterans that you and your team encounter? And then what recommendations do you have to mitigate those challenges?
I think one of the biggest ones is military culture, not reporting your symptoms and getting stuff diagnosed on active duty. Because then someone comes to us and like, hey, I need to file this claim. Where's the evidence? I don't see it in your service records anywhere. I got nothing to work with. I have no meat and potatoes to work with. So then we have to take a step back. Then you have to go find people you served with and get buddy statements, or hope and pray a doctor is willing to write some type of supporting medical statement for you. It's going to be really hard. So I would say military culture is probably like one of the best things and one of the worst things at the same time. So getting stuff documented is a really big issue. I think that if we're asking you for evidence, it's for a reason. A lot of people will push back at us, but we're asking for it. I'm always thinking 5 steps down the road. What could the VA want? And I'm thinking it from that perspective. I think the VA may ask this question. Let's give them that evidence ahead of time so we zip their lips and they have what they need and they can do a better job on your claim with better evidence. So I think really probably evidence is one of the biggest challenges. I think another challenge is that people come to us in crisis and then they don't realize that we have so many other clients at the same time. Jim, stop it. That people come to us in crisis, right? And they're only thinking that they're super hyper focused on their claim. And sometimes they forget that I got other clients, I have other phone calls. And I get that you're going through like a very stressful time in your life. But I think trusting your service officer is key, because if you trust your service officer, like, hey, I can't get to you till next week, can I book a phone appointment with you? You know that they're doing that to save time for you so they can focus on you when you need to ask them questions. So having a good support network around you is really important, but we live in kind of a chaotic time right now, right? Like a lot of things are up in the air. Sometimes it's hard to get medical appointments. So we get that. We go through it to ourselves, right? Like we have families, we get it. So I think kind of being sensitive to that, and people are still getting COVID, right? Like it's still happening. So just kind of being flexible and honest with your service officer will help, I think, clear up any challenges that you're facing and that your VSO may be facing with you.
Yeah, and so just to speak on it real quick, and I know you're the subject matter expert, but my experience, and you already know this, but so I am a combat vet. I served in Iraq from 2006 to 2008, and I had really bad post-traumatic stress disorder, and I just let everything slide. And then when I came to you after getting released from White River Junction, one of the things that you asked was that I needed to write down all these traumatic things that had happened to me in my experiences in combat. And it was difficult, but I have to say that your compassion really showed through, because you were like, take your time with it. Make sure that you're talking to your therapist, because this is going to bring back a lot of things, and you guiding me through that process made it a lot easier. But yeah, I totally came to you in crisis, and I am a different person today than I was then, which was only a couple years ago. But yeah, it was hard, and it can be hard, and swallowing your pride and realizing that you have a problem. This brings me to a question. So do I have to be enrolled into the VA in order to file a claim?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
All right.
Some people choose not to. They're like, I don't want to go to the VA. I don't like it. Okay, whatever.
Right.
That's fine. So it's your prerogative. You don't have to use them. Some people use private healthcare and VA healthcare at the same time.
Yeah.
Totally up to you. You get to choose that.
All right. And so when starting a VA claim, what are some of the biggest mistakes that veterans and active duty make?
Not submitting any evidence.
Yeah.
You can put it down on paper all day, doesn't gonna make it be true, right? Like you
Right.
have to submit evidence. My rule of thumb is if you put it on the form, you need a piece of paper to back it up,
Okay.
right? Like I think that's a good rule of thumb. If you say you have hearing loss, what did you do in the military? I'm not going to assume the person working on your claim did the exact same thing you did. I had a veteran that deployed to Iraq that had an administrative MOS. Okay, so looking at that person's DD-214 and their MOS, they're a desk jockey. How do they have hearing loss? How? Well, this person went on a deployment and didn't do that administrative tasking. They did something else because they were on deployment, right? Like, okay, that makes sense to me. Write a statement and explain that to the VA. They'll say, oh yeah, we see that you served in Iraq. Okay. And you need to explain those things. If you say that you hurt your ankle and, maybe you went off base to get it checked out because you didn't want anyone to know you hurt yourself, and now you're filing a claim, where's that document? It's not going to be in your service medical record,
Right.
right? Like, where's that document? So kind of like thinking outside of the box is really important. Don't assume the VA has all your records. Your records are as good as the person that compiled them. So you're making some assumptions there, and you know what they say about assuming things. So I think making assumptions like, oh yeah, it's definitely in your file. Do you know that for sure? If that's your one piece of evidence and you're banking, you're hoping that that's in your record, I usually say, okay, let's fingers and toes crossed it's actually in there.
Right.
And if you served a hot second ago, you're hoping that we can read the doctor's like handwritten scribble. Like it can be a lot. So I like to do some fact checking, right? Like I believe what you're telling me. I need to verify that it's actually in your file because you could get denied for not having that. So evidence is really important. I think not listening to your VSO will get you in trouble. And I also think not listening to the VA, they're going to send you development packets. A lot of people just toss those to the side. The VA could say, I need this from you. You have 60 days to reply. If you miss that, that's not their fault. They asked you for it and you didn't give it to them.
Right.
So I think just like reading everything and asking questions is so important. Evidence, 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 evidence.
All right. And Chris, this should help you with your question as well. But what should military members who are separating or retiring in the next year to 2 years start thinking about or know now?
So like I already mentioned, get your stuff documented now. Okay, we work for DMAVS, right, Jim? Like we are part of the state side of the National Guard. We do a lot of National Guard claims and outreach events. If you have gone out into the community with your TRICARE to get seen, you need to make sure your records are back in your service medical file, right? Like if they're not, the VA is not going to have a good time working on your claim. So making sure all that evidence is gathered, making sure all your medical conditions are documented. For a BDD claim, you have 180 days to 90 days to file your claim before you separate from the military, which is a great program. Especially if you got a lot of stuff going on, maybe you have some terminal leave, so you have extra time available to get to your comp and pen appointments. It's a good time to file. You can blast past that 90 days. It's just going to process like a regular claim. You can still file though. I think it's I think it's a good opportunity that the VA allows that. I think it's great. I think the biggest thing is to get it filed. If you're like, I got too much going on, I need to wait until the day I separate or after to file. You have 365 days when you come off active duty to get your claim in. I call it a sweet spot. It's going to be easier to show that you should be service connected for it. There's going to be less burden of proof on you. Once you get past that 365 days, there's more burden of proof on your shoulders to show how that condition is related to your military service. So just to quickly answer Will's question, it can be easier for someone who's been active duty the entire time to get service connected. You've spent your adult life on active duty and things should be clearly documented. If you've been in the Guard and Reserve and come on and off active duty frequently, which we often see, you could have, I mean, I've done a claim for someone that had like 12 DD214s. You have to make sure that condition lines up to that active duty service and that it's documented during that active duty time. That can get a little messy. It's not impossible, but you have to build a good timeline and make sure evidence is clear. It's not out of the question. It just gets a little bit more messy. And then, so if someone, one more quick question that kind of goes along with this, for someone to assist applying for a Purple Heart, that's kind of difficult. I would say you should probably email a VSO about that because we're going to have some ideas for you, but each branch of the military actually has an office that does that. So you would need to find that information and reach out to them. You may need to get supporting statements from people you served with. Or, 2006, that was kind of a hectic time frame during the war. So a lot of people's DD-214s, awards and citations are not accurate. So that doesn't surprise me. But it's not unheard of, but I know applying for a Purple Heart is not easy. So I'd probably email a VSO about that. A BDD claim, that is when you apply before you get out. There's different types of claims you can apply for. So if you're still on active duty, you could potentially do that. It's the idea is for you to have your claim just about done as you're coming off of active duty. Your comp and pen exams are done. They're waiting for your DD-214 hot off the press so they can certify, boom, you are good to go. The claim's been all done. Now they can finish and finally adjudicate the award. So the idea is for everything to get done by the time you're coming off of active duty. There's no guarantee. I've seen some that have gone past that. So there's no guarantee it's definitely going to be done. It should be mostly done. I've seen people get stuck where they've been waiting for their 214 and the VA is ready. They're just waiting for their 214. You could submit a copy of the working copy, but they do want the finalized one. But if you have a working copy, I would totally give that to your VSO and use that in the meantime. So I think that's a good jumping point. Oh, yes. And sorry, I think I misunderstood one of the questions. Actually, what does BDD stand for? But it's benefits delivery at discharge. I can't hear you, Jim.
They asked what a BDD claim was, and I just find it easier when you break it down to not an acronym.
Everything's an acronym.
Delivery at discharge kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. So as I'm getting out, I should start receiving, if I'm awarded a percentage, I should start receiving a check
Yeah.
as I'm discharged.
Absolutely.
So for me, that makes sense.
Yeah, the key is for it to be as done as possible by the time you come off of active duty. That's the intent of the program. But again, you could do a BDD claim and go, oh my gosh, I just got diagnosed with something else as I was coming off of active duty, and still do a follow-up claim within that 365 days and still do more claims after. So it's not like a one and done.
Right.
You just do one claim and you're totally done. You can do more claims after that.
And you can file for an increase as well, right?
Absolutely. If things get worse, you file for an increase.
Okay.
And VSOs can help with that as well.
Excellent.
Yep.
So I want to talk about the thing that everybody's talking about, right? So the PACT Act. So I've seen some information on this that is really confusing for me. But
it's been confusing for VSOs as well.
Yeah. Can you kind of just talk a little bit about the PACT Act, the predatory companies that are really popping up all over the place because of it, and kind of just like a rundown of what the PACT Act is and how it works?
Absolutely. So PACT Act, I believe the president signed it in August timeframe. It is a really big bill. It's focused on hazardous chemical exposures. That's a big thing. And also expanding healthcare coverage. It is a massive bill. They talk about Camp Lejeune. They talk about ionizing radiation. They talk about Gulf War, burn pit particulate matter, and there's some Agent Orange stuff in there. It is a massive bill. And some people are getting confused, like some Vietnam veterans are getting confused thinking they can apply for asthma, which is under the burn pit. They didn't serve in the Persian Gulf in the right year, so they can't apply for that. It's just, there's so much information out there. It's so confusing. These predatory companies are like, oh, come work with us. We're the best. We'll get your benefits faster. Hey, guess what? They can't go faster than the VA can process those things. And they'll say, we'll get you pre-certified for your approval. There is no such thing as pre-certification to get your benefits approved. That's not a thing. You have to formally put down on paper on a VA form what you're filing for and submit it. There's no pre-certification. I could eyeball it and go, Jamie thinks this looks like a pretty darn good claim to me. If I
Right.
do say so myself, that's pretty good. But you still have to apply. They can't guarantee you're going to get something. It's just insane. So again, that morally gray, icky area that I don't like. I could go on and on for hours. If you want to pick my brain about it offline, I'll give you my mind. But if I can do it for you for free, why would you pay someone? It's just like, insane to me. Don't do it. Again, I call them ambulance chasers, but I'm passionate about this. I did not serve. My dad missed the draft for Vietnam. He was just missed it by a hair. I have uncles that are Vietnam veterans. I'm the granddaughter of World War II veterans. I have other family members that have served. I'm very passionate about this because I look at my clients like these could be my potential family members, right? Like I have family members in this situation. So I would get very angry if someone was trying to rip off one of my uncles, right? Like, the claws and the fangs come out. So I just look at it like trying to protect our veterans. You deserve to keep your benefits. So PACT Act is really big, and it's talking about presumptive conditions. So if your boots hit the ground in that specific area, you don't have to show how exposed you were, but if your boots hit the ground or you served in the area as the law outlines, you have a diagnosis of that condition, you can apply for that under a presumptive basis. The symptoms may not have presented on active duty. They may have presented afterwards, but you can apply. And your VSO would go over all of this with you. PACT Act is just big. It's a little messy. And I would say we ask you questions. Where did you serve? Where'd you go on deployment? What years for that? Oh, well, I was in the Navy. I'm like, I don't care. Where did you go? Like, where did your ship port? Oh, Bahrain. Oh, that's PACT Act. Okay, let's talk about this. You have asthma and sinusitis and bronchitis and all these things. Let's file a claim. So I don't like when people go, oh, no, that's not for me. I'm like, no, wait, let's talk about this because it might be for you.
Right. And I think one of the most confusing pieces of information that I found was the timelines of when they're presumptive or when you can file a claim.
Yeah.
Am I correct in saying that? I don't do this every day, so.
So you can, part of PACT Act was you had to have had presented with some conditions within a year of coming off of active duty. PACT Act has lifted some of that.
Okay.
So if you were previously denied, talk to your VSO. You can very easily file a supplemental claim. And also you could potentially reopen that.
Okay.
So again, when in doubt, talk to your VSO because they're the one who knows the law and they're going to help you.
All right.
But we can reopen that claim for you very easily.
And I know that that's just a quick overview and it's a huge bill. So
that's like a 50,000 foot view, like blah, 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 blah. Talk to your VSO. It's a lot of info. It really is.
It's essentially like the Affordable Care Act where it's just so big that it's.
Yeah, go read a couple thousand pages and have at it. It's like, what? How did you got to digest all that information? It's a lot.
Good thing we have people like you out there to do it.
I'm tired at the end of the day. Sometimes I have dreams about Excel spreadsheets and like reading the federal code. And I'm like, oh, okay, wait a second. I don't have to do that right now.
So can you talk about benefits with our state specifically for veterans and permanent and total veterans, which I didn't realize this until, probably a couple years ago, but they are different.
Yes. So If you talk to my director, Bill, he will say that we VSOs are your best benefit in the state of New Hampshire. To toot our own horn a little bit, but New Hampshire, we are small, but I think mighty in the areas that we do have benefits. I get a lot of people, Massachusetts has this. Yeah, I used to live in Mass. You pay out the nose in taxes. So if you live in a state with a lot of taxes, the benefits tend to be more. Live free or die state. I joke that our benefits fit on one page, like, haha, it fits on a, one printer size page. So property tax benefit, we have a wartime credit and all veteran credit if you are in the small minority of veterans in our lifetime that have served during peacetime. Our world's not very peaceful and hasn't been for a very long time, but we do have small little bursts of peacetime in there. We have a property tax credit for permanent and total veterans. We have license plates, we have multi-use decal plates for veterans. The Marine Corps are the decals that we sell the most of. Our Marines are loud and proud about their service. So we sell more Marine Corps decals than any other. You can get, if you're permanent total, your driver's license fee is waived. You can get a handicap veteran license plate. Your car registration is waived. Free tuition. So again, this is permanent and total veterans. You have to have that from the VA. Free tuition for children of New Hampshire veterans rated permanent and total. I have a link in my notes there, Jim, if you want to pop that in there. Our website, our DMAVS website actually has all this stuff as well. So you might want to throw the DMAVS link in there. And Jim and I both work for DMAVS. We just work for different divisions within DMAVS. But there's a lot of different things. We have a hunting and fishing license, state park, getting into state parks for free. There's a lot of information. So we have our brochure on our website. There's a lot of links to the RSAs, which are our state laws. So just a lot of information. I think our property tax credits are pretty good for our small state. I think they're pretty generous to considering our tax base and how we do our taxes in New Hampshire. We don't have income tax or sales tax, and that makes us really, what's the word I'm looking for? Desirable for people getting out of the, retiring, because your retirement's not going to be taxed in New Hampshire. So that's really a big selling point for a lot of people. So we don't have as many benefits as like Texas and California, but I think the ones we do have are generous. I think they're good. I will say a lot of our New Hampshire state benefits are based on an honorable discharge. That is very important. So if you don't have an honorable discharge, a lot of these benefits aren't going to be an option for you, unfortunately. But if you have concerns about that, I would say reach out to your local, your local state senators and reps. And I know they've been working on trying to get the New Hampshire law updated to mirror the federal laws, because you don't have to have a full honorable discharge for all federal benefits. So the state's been trying to match those up, but I won't go too far into the weeds about that.
Well, and to talk about the property tax benefit alone, so obviously I'm 100% permanent total now, but even before that, just my first home buying experience, I bought a mobile home for $1. I was very fortunate with that, but I paid no state property tax because of the value of my property and what my taxes would have been. So even as a veteran, I think it was like $500 a year. So
yeah.
All right, and so what benefits? We just talked about benefits, but are there any specific benefits for retirees that veterans don't get?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think one of the biggest ones is the income tax, to be perfectly honest with you. I think
property
that's
tax,
property tax,
and
but also
not taxing the income.
Yeah,
the
your retirement
benefit.
check. That's really key. Like, I think that's really big because we're surrounded by states that have, decent size income taxes. So New Hampshire's our little holdout in the middle of New England.
So Sabrina had a question, and I don't think that it was anywhere near where I don't even think I know about this. But what about MEB IDES claims and continued appointments after submitting the claim?
Excellent question. So this is talking about if you're getting medically retired.
Okay.
Okay, so what happens is the VA comes alongside DoD and they work on claims while you're in. Typically, it's just the conditions you're getting medically retired for. So there's probably going to have to be some follow-up work done after you get medically retired. And again, a VSO can help you with that. So IDES and med board process, that's DoD doing their thing, right? Like they've identified you're not worldwide deployable anymore. You need to get out. They're going to medically discharge you. VA comes alongside and says, oh yeah, we'll do that percentage. And there's all this dancing they do behind the scenes, right? Like we don't see that. We can help if we're like, that percentage isn't fair, or, oh, you've got 25 conditions that you need to file for because DoD hurt you so good on your deployments, like, or I don't know, whatever. Let's file a follow-up claim within that 365 days of you coming off of active duty. So we can still help with that. We come in a lot of times and do follow-up claims to the IDES and med board process.
Okay.
That's a good question.
And so I actually have this has made me think of a question. So I think that if I retire, right, and my and the army or the whatever service I was in, I feel like I got jacked up while I was serving, and I come in at 25% disabled. I know that it's taken out of your retirement. Is that kind of a hindrance for people who retire to file a claim?
No, I think you still should, because if you get service connected with the VA, it puts you in a priority group for healthcare coverage at the VA Medical Center. So I think that's really important. Having extra healthcare coverage, in Jamie's opinion, is always a good thing in this day and age. I think you should keep that option for you. If you are under 50% service connected, there could be some type of recoupment. Jamie doesn't think that's fair, but that's the way the federal law is written. Jamie doesn't like it, but that's the way the law is written. Once you hit 50% or higher, you can get both. Now, it also depends what kind of retirement you have. I could talk about this for 2 hours, honest to goodness. So I'm not going to confuse everybody. I would say DFAS has a lot of good information about what kind of military retirement you have and how it interacts with VA, or how it could interact with VA. They have a whole page on it. Okay. So oftentimes what I do when someone's talking like, oh, hold on, what kind of retirement do you have? You retired from the National Guard, or you got medically retired, or you're a regular retiree, or you got early retirement. Like, we got to pull up what DFAS says and figure out what you're getting from VA and kind of look at that. There's so many different combinations. I'm not going to go into it right now, but if you're under 50%, there could be some type of VA. The federal government looks like it's double dipping. And again, Jamie doesn't think that's fair. Most people don't, but it's the way the law is written. So,
all right.
Yeah.
And so for veterans in other states, because this is a nationwide web series, who should they look for as a point of contact for benefits in their specific state?
So I would say, again, make sure you're looking for an accredited VSO. Yep. Every state has a state Department of Veterans Affairs. So I work for the Division of Veterans Services within the state of New Hampshire. I am a division of part of a department, a bigger veteran department within the state. Every state has one. I think Maine's the Maine Bureau of Veteran Services. Every state's different. So I would say you could hit Google and put, I don't know, whatever state, say you're from Indiana, Nebraska Department, Nebraska State Department of Veterans Affairs. You want to look for a .gov. Okay, stay away from the .coms. .coms, no. But there's also different organizations. There's county veteran service officers that are part of a big national organization. They are a nonprofit. Okay. They are not going to charge you. They are really good. They have excellent training programs for their CVSOs. They are excellent. I know some of them, they're really, really good. They have a website. You can also go on the VA's page for that. We talked about it up in the chat earlier. The Office of General Counsel has an entire page for accredited representatives. You could also look at American Legion, DAV, VFW, Wounded Warriors, Order of the Purple Heart. These organizations are not going to charge you. Okay, they are accredited and approved by the VA. So those are the people you want to look at. National organizations are great. County Veteran Service Officers that are accredited are great. Your state VSOs are great. So I would definitely stick with the .govs or the .orgs.
Okay.
And stay away from the .coms.
And then, so we talk about a lot about National Guardsmen and reservists. Is the claim process different for them?
It's not going to be different. Sometimes it's a little messy.
Okay.
And I mean that because if you've come on and off active duty, like I alluded to before, a ton of times,
Right.
you have to, it's like a game of like match, right? Like you're playing with your kids match, like, okay, this injury happened on this deployment. This injury aligns with this active duty deployment. If you get hurt on a drill weekend or your 2 weeks of training a year, it sometimes gets hard because a lot of times you don't want to say that you got hurt on drill weekend. Or maybe your sergeant doesn't want to do the paperwork. Or it's hard to get an LOD. You need a line of duty. You could have a profile, but that could be because you hurt your back at home shoveling, not necessarily because it happened on a drill weekend. So we're really looking for an LOD at that point. It can be messy. I would make sure that you kind of have that work through in your head, like, okay, this happened on this active duty. It's documented in my service records. I was on deployment when that one happened. I put it on my post-deployment health assessment that I actually filled out and didn't go, good to go, no problems. After that wretched deployment, nothing happened wrong when I was there, no problems.
We don't do that.
That never happens, never, ever, ever. So I think just making sure that you let your VSO know, like I got like 12 DD-214s and be like, all right, let's book an appointment and a follow-up appointment for next month because you're going to have to go like dumpster diving in your boxes in your basement to find all that paperwork. So it's not out of the question. I think you should file a claim. You just might have to do a little bit more info gathering because if you're active duty, everything should be in the same spot for you, right? Guard and reservists, it gets a little bit messier, but I have a lot of clients that are in the Guard and Reserve that are service connected.
So in the rare case, because I never served in the National Guard or Reserves, I only did my active duty time. In the rare case that a National Guardsman or a reservist does a 5, 10, 20-year stint, but never sees 180 days of active duty without the gaps, can they still file a claim? Are they still considered a veteran?
Yeah, they could, technically. I would say yes, but you would need to probably have an LOD. It's not out of the question. I think it makes it harder if you don't have that active duty time and things aren't documented. And again, it goes back to the evidence. I've had someone, get hurt in basic training. They got a DD-214. I mean, in Jamie's mind, my definition, you are still a vet. You served. You put your name on that, you signed your name on that dotted line. Your intention was to serve.
Right.
I think where people get confused if they are a veteran or not is if they qualify for the benefit they're looking at. Qualifications and if you're actually a veteran are two different things. So I think Jamie's opinion, you're a vet. You served. You just happened to get hurt really bad and you got medically discharged. Or if you were in the National Guard and you didn't have to deploy, that's awesome. But depending on what benefits you're looking at, you might not qualify for some benefits.
So I want to get back to BDD claims again, but first I want to ask, so your office, if I called today and I wanted to schedule an appointment, how What's your wait time right now?
I think Manchester's only like 2 weeks. We're getting ready to do an internal audit and just doing some housekeeping and customer service follow-up. So we're actually going to be closed for appointments for 2 weeks. So that pushes us out a little bit, but we have appointments available in May.
Okay.
So, I
Well,
mean, we're some locations we go to book out more because we only go there twice a month versus twice a week.
right.
So it kind of depends. If you can be flexible and you don't mind driving into, say, Manchester or Concord, we could probably get you in the month of May.
So if I'm getting out and I'm 2 years away, or say I'm a year away, and I know that BDD is between 180 and 90 days, but should I be meeting with a VSO now at my 1 year mark and at least having these conversations now?
It might be a little bit too early for an appointment, but if you really want one, we'll let you have one.
Okay. So
Um,
so is the 180 days really like the maximum amount of time you want left before you start booking out those appointments and starting everything?
I would say when you call in, say you want to do a BDD claim,
Okay.
and I would say just say that.
Okay.
Now, if you're like 4 years out, we really don't need to meet with you right now,
Right.
right? Like anything could change. You could stay in for another 6 years, right?
Right.
Like, but I think if you're at the year mark and you're getting close, and depending on when your physical, like your retirement or your separation physical is, you really want to start booking that appointment with the VSO so they can give you all the paperwork you're going to need. And to file a BDD claim, you actually have to give the VA a copy of your service medical records to file a BDD.
Okay.
And then something else you have to do is, sorry, I have my notes here because Jim was nice and told me what he was going to ask me ahead of time. The VA just updated something with the BDD claims. Now you have to have, and I have to read it because they just did it this week, and I don't like it when they update things because then I have to rememorize everything. It's rude. Um, when you file a BDD claim, now the VA is asking that you submit your separation health assessment part A with your BDD. If you don't have the part A self-assessment, you're getting kicked out of the BDD program and it's going to get processed like a regular claim. I look at it as kind of a pain in the butt. However, the self-assessment, that is your self-assessment. That is your time to shine. Your doctor doing your separation physical might not write something down, but you get to write down, say you have a symptom and it's not a diagnosed condition yet. I have widespread joint pain and I don't know what's causing it. I get really severe headaches and I don't know why. Like, you want to put that stuff down. The part A is going to be a part of your separation physical process. And I do have, we got a link. I don't know if you're working on throwing that in there, Jim. I actually do have a PDF of that form. The go live date was 1 April for this. So Chris, if you are out processing and you've already had your physical and you're like, what the heck, this isn't fair, I actually have a PDF of it. If you wanted to get us your contact information afterwards, we could certainly send you the PDF. But we do have a link to the VA's website that talks about this. And some of the reasoning behind it. It just happened really, really fast. So everyone's like, whoa, hold on there. But I think the intent of the change is a good thing. They want you to be able to certify what your conditions and symptoms are, even if the doctor doesn't think it's worthy of putting it down. I think that's what I'm getting for the intent of it, which is, I think, a good thing because it's helping you. So Jim just threw that
Yeah, I wanted
information
to
in there.
copy the hyperlink for some reason, but
That's weird.
yeah.
But again, I would love to file claims for all of you, but I physically can't because you'll push me into an early retirement.
Sure, yeah.
But if you guys need, oh, there it is. If you guys need a link to something we talked about, please let Jim and I know. We can certainly get it for you. We want you to have, we like to do this because we like to educate people. It's really important. So this is part of the reason why we're doing this. You need to be informed about this process, you can make better decisions for yourself, right? That's why you're doing this today, because you want more info. But let's see here. Did I get, yeah, I think I talked about all that stuff already under the BDD.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Okay.
And so I'm a veteran. I file a claim through your office. I'm really grateful that this never happened to me personally, but my claim's denied. What is my next step with you?
Make an appointment and talk about appealing it. Because what we want to do is look over what happened. Why was it denied? Did the VA miss a piece of evidence? Was it a bad comp and pen exam? Did the doctor not look at all your evidence when they said, oh, it's not related? Is there something missing out of your service record that you assumed was in there? Right? Like, I don't know. We need to talk about that. And so you can do a couple levels of appeal, supplemental claim, which is actually an appeal. We're saying, hey, you missed something. Can you look at it again for us? Thank you very much. Goodbye. Higher level review, where you have an informal phone call with a decision review officer or a Board of Veterans Appeals appeal. I like to go follow, if you think about chain of command, do the path of least resistance first and then work your way up. But your VSO would help you with that.
And I'm going to post this link right now because I saved the best question in my opinion.
I'm going to make you answer this one.
Oh, I'm not even good at it. Can you explain VA math? Because I know when I went through my claims process,
you were confused.
I have a 70%, I have a 60%, I have a 20%, I have a 10%, and I have another 20%, but they're saying that I'm only 70%. So
yeah. Yes. So my joke is Congress made this math. So there you have it, all set. No, in reality, they're not whole numbers, they're percentages.
Okay.
So if you understand that, you're like, oh, okay. So your body is 100%. You're never going to go over 100%, right?
Right.
So I'm like, think of yourself like a pizza, right? We're past lunchtime. We might be getting a little hangry here. So think of yourself like a pie or a pizza. You're taking slices out of that, right? So like if you could have 10%, that does not equal 100.
All right.
I went to school for history and political science. That melts my brain. It doesn't make sense to me, whatever. I'm not a math person. I like Excel and calculators. There is an equation you can do. I don't recommend doing it. There is, yeah, that's like, it's so confusing. What I always tell people, don't get too bogged down in that. When your decision comes out, you can book time with your service officer, be like, explain this to me. My simpleton mind does not comprehend this Congress math, and we'll say ours doesn't either. Let's go at it. With the chart, if you're looking at the combined ratings table, you always start with your highest condition first.
Okay.
And then you work your way over. The VA has actually updated their website the past couple of years that really explain it a lot better than what they used to. So I think that is really, really helpful. And yes, if you look at the combined ratings table, if you're at a 75, that rounds up to 80. If you're at a 74, that rounds down to 70. What? Just make them whole numbers. Like, I don't know. I didn't make it. Congress did. So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I would say it's confusing, and it's a combined ratings table. So that's a key. It's the VA combining your percentages, and you cannot be more than 100%. And if you kind of think of that, you're like, oh, I think I kind of get it now. Like maybe that's making a little bit more sense. It's wickedly confusing. They have a program they use, so they can't like go, oops, sorry, I'm doing it by hand and I skipped a line. They actually have computer programs that do this math for them, so they don't mess up your percentage. So it is better than just going, oh, okay, 70, go over 30. Okay, there's that one. Go down here and go over. It's better than that. This is just for us to look at for understanding purposes, which I think probably makes things more confusing.
That's fair enough. And
yeah,
it is very confusing.
I
still remember sitting on the VA's combined ratings calculator and being like, okay, but how does this work? Oh, okay, so I should be at this. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and they actually have a calculator on their
Yeah.
website now where you can punch stuff in. There's some lawyer offices that have calculators, but they're always like, I feel like they inflate, like if you're playing around with numbers, like I feel like it inflates what you should be at.
Right.
Use the VA's calculator. That I'm going to feel safer with you getting that information from the VA's website.
All right. So we did have somebody email a question. We actually had two, but you've already covered one. So they said, I've moved 3 times since leaving active duty and have since lost the CD containing my medical records provided to me during transition. When I submit my disability claim, I understand I will need those medical records in addition to any civilian records post-transition. Does my representative do the records request to obtain them for the packet? Or if not, where exactly should I submit my records request to?
If they are your service medical records, VA will get those. If they are private medical records, you need this form. It's a VA form 4142 and a 4142A. You put down all the places you've been to and the VA can go get those records for you. So I just put that in the chat. If you fill that form out and give it to your VSO, because of HIPAA, I cannot solicit medical evidence for you, right? Like that, if I tried to call Jim's primary care physician and be like, who the heck are you? No, right? They would even do that to Jim's wife if she wasn't an authorized person at his medical provider's office. So it's like HIPAA is like locks you down tight.
Right.
You would need to do that form. And then the VA will go out and get those records for you. So you don't be like, I'm not going to go to California to go fill out a release to go get those records. Like what? Let the VA go get them for you. They have that form to help you. I will say something I've learned is if you do community care and if you have VA healthcare.
Yep.
And VA has sent you out for care in the community or whatever it's called these days, Mission Act, care in the community, whatever. Sometimes those records are buried deep within VHA healthcare records. And because of HIPAA, they're considered third party. I would highly suggest doing one of those forms that I dropped in the chat there, because that your claim, I've been seeing more and more claims get decided because VBA, who is separate from VHA, can't find your records deep in the VHA system.
Right.
Do VBA a solid and just let them go grab those records so they can make a good decision. Do that form. I've just been finding a lot of stuff getting missed because of that and having to go into an appeals process where if we would have known it was hard to get that stuff ahead of time, we just would have done a 4142 and called it a day, right? Like we just would have let VBA go get those. So use that form. But that's a really good question.
All right. And do you have anything else before I open it up to questions?
I would say if you were going to call our office, I can put 12 of you again. All 12 of you. Or I know people are going to watch this on the replay on YouTube, yes. I guess, or wherever you're going to put YouTube, it. Yep. I can't answer all of your questions. Like my brain will implode, right? If you have something specific and you're like, what do I ask? You can email me, that's fine. But if you're calling into our office, our 1980s phone system has kicked the bucket just about. So what you want to do is, if you can't get through to extension 301, we're getting this weird thing. It has a weird ringtone and you can't get through to Cynthia. You can leave the director, lucky him, a voicemail at extension 302. Or you could send Cynthia an email, and I'm going to drop her email in here in a second.
Oh, do you want me to put your email in there too?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's Cynthia. I mean, I can type out my own email if you want.
Whatever's easier for you.
So just be patient with us. We've been super slammed because of PACT Act. We're doing the best we can. Sometimes we thought we did an email and we didn't reply back to it. Just be like, hey, I emailed you last week. I haven't heard back from you. I apologize. Some days I could get like 80 emails and they're all action items like that need a response. So physically, sometimes it's hard to get through all those, plus clients, plus phone calls. And you guys understand. But I think you should book an appointment. I think if you've been on this, you probably have a good idea of what kind of stuff you need to gather. At the very least, just show up with your DD-214 to the appointment and a notebook. and be available to ask questions and take notes. And then we'll tell you what you need to do.
All right.
Yeah.
With that, does anybody have any questions for Jamie? Or myself, but I am not a subject matter expert.
Jim knows more than he lets on. I've taught him well.
I don't think so. So, Jamie, I would like to thank you once again for doing
Yeah.
this. And once again, I am biased, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I hope everybody got something out of this. And if you don't follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn or on YouTube, I would encourage that. Before this Frago series, we had a Frago series with Dr. James Lynch about the stellate ganglion block for PTSD. It helped me tremendously and really sparked this whole series. How did I choose a VSO? I have to be honest, I have a friend of mine who is in the New Hampshire National Guard, and he was, so I have bad PTSD. I was hospitalized for my PTSD in White River Junction. And I was talking to my buddy of mine, and he was like, you know what, I'm going to help you out. And he handed me Jamie's card, and he said, this is the best VSO in the entire state. According to everyone I've talked to, you need to call her. And so that's what I did, because I was that person who was in crisis. I was that person who was not in a good place. And I really, truly just listened to everything that Jamie told me to do. And it worked out really well. And, now I didn't work for DMAVS then. I do work for DMAVS now. And it's been a little easier to be like, to see Jamie at an event and be like, hey, but I was looking at this and I was wondering about this.
He has the homie hookup now.
I do. But I honestly can tell you that before that, it was still very responsive. I would send an email, and usually within a day or two, I would get an email back. And yeah, it was a great experience for me in a time that I really needed those great experiences. So
Yeah, and I think we met during COVID too. I think I was
we did.
reassigned up in Concord, and I think I
We
met
were.
you out in the parking lot at the military reservation. It probably
Well,
looked super shady.
I think I just walked through the front door, and you're where the deputy adjutant general is now. You were in there
Yeah.
with somebody else doing something.
Yeah, I was working on a CARES Act grant, and I was like, come sit with me.
Yeah.
And I'm the agency supervisor, so I don't have a really big client load because I do like a lot of management stuff. But I also train the VSOs. So oftentimes if you meet with one of my VSOs, if you ask a question that stumps them, they're on Teams going, hey, what's the answer to this? And it allows me to help all of them at the same time so they can help more people out in the community. So I went almost this entire time without my beagle screaming in the background. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I apologize. It's probably good. We're almost done. But I am really thankful for this job. It means a lot to me. I enjoy helping you guys. I enjoy working with family members as well, because a lot of times you have a good family member pushing behind you like, hey, you need to look into this benefit. Let's go.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. I would say find a VSO if you're unsure. There's only two. If you need I should add this before we get off. There's only two female VSOs in the state, myself and Hillary Oliver. And Hillary works for me. She works for Division of Veteran Services. So if you need a specific VSO, or like if you were in the National Guard and you were like, hey, I don't want to go to Concord because I used to work there. I want some privacy. I don't want to run into someone that I know. You can just let Cynthia know that when she's booking the appointment. And if you're like, I would rather go to Manchester, we're at the VA Medical Center 5 days a week by appointment. You could say, I'd rather drive down to Manchester. I'd rather drive down to Nashua. I'd rather go to Keene. I don't care. If you have a preference and want to drive, knock yourself out. Just you have to verbalize that when Cindy is booking the appointment so she can make sure you get where you feel comfortable.
Yeah, and that's, I think, important. Even if you're not in New Hampshire, if you have some of those
Absolutely.
worries, that you need to really communicate that with whoever you're speaking to set up the appointment.
Yeah, because if you're like, I need a female VSO, and be like, oh, tell me why. Well, I know why if you're asking, because you have something private you need to talk about, and that's
Right.
okay. Like, we're not going to go tell me all your details right now. I'm not a clinician. I don't want to know all your details. I trust you're coming to me for a reason. That is good enough for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, thank you again, and thank you everyone for joining us. And please follow us on social media, and don't miss out on the next Frago series, which is going to be with Boots to Books president and founder. And their job is they provide books and educations and certifications for military members, spouses, children, veterans. So yeah, follow us there, and we hope to see you on the next one.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jamie. Take care.
All right. Bye.